everyone, Jane here. I hope you're having a great week. I'm going to be starting a new series that I'm calling Make It Monday, and I will be featuring different types of projects, whether it be card making, a purse. I'm really not sure. It's just going to depend on what the mood strikes, and it may be weekly and it may be monthly, but today we're starting with these Pinkfresh love cards. These products have been sitting on my desk for a while, and I finally got around to making something with them, and I love them, using the Pinkfresh Embroidered Blossoms as my first one, with this great Adore Alpha set and the stamps and dies. The cool thing about the dies is they cut an outline, which you will see. I'm going to be using the Picket Fence Life-Changing brushes. This is my first time. Catherine Pooler mini ink cubes, which I love, and the colors will be listed in the description below. Brutus Munroe alabaster embossing powder, embossing ink, and a coffee filter to catch all the extra. I'm starting with my Misty today and my temporary Tombow stamp runner. I'm laying out my stamps on top of the grid that comes with, that you can order. I'm sorry, it doesn't come with it. And I've sped this up. And the reason I like that plastic grid is when I close the cover of my Misty, as you'll see, when I pick up those stamps, it attaches the plastic to it but doesn't remove my paper. I'm using the embossing magic first before I go ahead and stamp these with the Brutus Munroe embossing ink. And I'm trying to get a really good coverage on these stamps so that I get a really good emboss. I'm using my stamp Shammy to press down hard. Normally I use the sleeve of my shirt, but due to the fact that it's summertime, I don't have any sleeves, which is awesome. And I will take this off of here and I will sprinkle the Brutus Munroe white alabaster powder on here. Get my heat tool, my Wagner, which I love, good and hot before I take it to the paper so the paper doesn't warp. And I'm trying to get it in frame so you can see the powder melting, and I'm not succeeding, as you can see. It's hard, it's really hard to get this on the video. Here we go. So you can see the powder melting here is magic. I just love embossing. It's one of my favorite things to do. Once I get one side done, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to do the other side, and I'm going to be laying the stamps out individually as well. And let me see if we can see this in the video. I take that and then I fold that in half and I scoop that right back in the container so I don't lose a drop. Putting that back in my Misty. Temporary adhesive so it doesn't move. And I'm laying it out, and I didn't quite fit, so now I had to take it all apart and put them all back on there again, which didn't take very long. And this is where you can mass produce. If you do one, you could do two or three, do different colors, keep the flower background, but change the way the card looks. You can change your sentiments, your colors, however you want to do it. This is a salt cellar. I'll list it below. It's where I keep my Lawn Fawn stamp Shammy. I love it. I'm wiping my stamps really well, and the reason the camera's jiggling is because my tripod is sitting on my table. Here I am getting out my Picket Fence Life-Changing brushes. As I said, I've never used them before, but I've heard some great things about them. They look almost like they're foam, but they're not. They're little brushes. They're very, very interesting. So very light hand, rubbing it on my cardstock. I have a hard time with ink blending. I feel like I always have harsh lines and I can never get it in there properly. So I've sped this up. I'm cleaning it in between. And again, the colors are listed below. And I changed the brush for the blues and greens. I have a different brush. I think I got the pack of 10. I love all the different brushes. I'm going to the green. Love this green. And again, I love Catherine Pooler inks. I have the minis. I wish I would have bought the full inks because I use them all the time. And that is a very fun rainbow. I have taken the Adore, I guess, dies, laid them on a line there so I know they're even. Took my purple tape and I'm laying it on top, And that way I know they're all in a line. I don't have to mess with trying to line them up on my card. And I'm putting them down right there. But as I was doing it, I realized that I wanted to cut this down a little bit to have a little bit of the card showing through. So I'm using the Fawn scallop rectangles, and I'll be cutting that out. Just a little tad of the card will show through, laying out my love, getting it all nice and even, and running it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cut machine. The Spellbinders Platinum 6 cuts an amazing, amazing cut. I'm taking my time taking these off because there's this little borders around each letter. You can see those there, and I don't want to wreck those or ruin those. At this point, I really wasn't sure what the plan was for those. I was just evolving as what I was creating. I then cut out the love out of inexpensive craft foam, just kids craft foam, and I glue the letters on top of the craft foam with Tombow glue. It's one of my favorite liquid adhesives. I love liquid adhesives because it gives you an opportunity to move it around. So if you don't get it lined up exactly, you can squish it around and move it around. So I'm putting all the loves on there and moving everything. That purple tape in the middle of there is to remind me that I need to be in frame for camera. This is Nina 110-pound cardstock with my Teflon bone folder. I know the bone folder is expensive, but it's well worth every penny. I'm going to glue this down. That purple tape, you don't even see that there. That's just from when I cut out the die cut. And I'm going to glue this down with liquid adhesive, again, so that it has an opportunity to move if I don't get it laid down exactly. But the other reason is I can get those little tiny areas without having to worry about an excess of tape runner or anything like that. And I love the way just the little border there and the little bit of card showing through gives it so much interest. Now I'm going to take my letters. Well, before I do that, I like to put a big heavy block on top or my phone or something like that to just give it drying a couple of minutes so that I don't, so it doesn't move on me while I'm working on the next part. I'm going to put a little more liquid adhesive behind the letters. And then I'm going to glue those to the center of the white area. And you will see there is a little white area around each letter. Sorry about my head. Sometimes you have to get right on top to see. There's a little white area showing around the edge of every letter. And I did change my mind at the end. You'll see what I did to make it a little bit different. I do like the white area, but I thought I would use the edges. Making sure to say the center of my O, make sure it's lined up. This is my paper piecing tool. Tim Holtz has a great retractable tool. These are from the Taylor Expressions stamp and die set. Again, it's linked below. And there are so many sentiments, and you stamp them all and you die cut them all at one time. And I keep them in a bowl and I look through them all the time to see which ones I want to use. It's so nice to have all these sentiments all made with a little flag at the edge and all ready to go without having to do it again. I put a little foam behind that to pop that up just a little bit. I got out my jewels that I love. I keep them in my drawer. I have the triangle tray. It is linked in the description below, as well as more details on my blog. And I'm just using my crystal, I think it's Catania pickup tool. Yeah, that's what it's called. And it works so amazing. So what I like to do is lay out all my jewels. And as you can see, I changed my mind and I decided that all the colors and the other ones were way too bright, and I pulled all of the jewels from one container. And again, that is listed below. I lay them all out, then I pick them up with my left hand and put a little glue down and put them on with glue with my right hand. And it just works so awesome that way. That way I'm not messing up and put any jewels where I don't want jewels. And there's where I thought was my finished card, and it came out so cool. Now for card number 2, I'm going to use the Stamps Market Crisscross background die. This is a very fun die. It just gives you just a little bit of subtle detail, which I think is so important in a background, although I do like plain backgrounds. So I did emboss that, and just like I did the one before, and you will see it when I put the color on it, but I did use the Brutus Munroe embossing powder and ink. I cut the love out from scraps from my stash, and I am ink blending again with the same color Catherine Pooler mini inks, and you can see that crisscross coming through in the background right there. This time I'm cleaning it on paper towels in between. I wasn't really sure if my stamp chamois was cleaning it because I couldn't see. This way with this paper towel I could see if I had ink. I took my sprayer, spritzer, and I sprinkled some water on the top. My well-loved microfiber cloth. And it's hard to see in this particular shot, but there's some really cool water blotches on there. I cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4. This is an A2 size card. I'm taking the little borders off of all of the letters and laying them all out. And you will see here that as I'm laying them all out, I just wanted to see the colors and how it all laid out. I realized that that was the wrong color pink. So I recut the right color pink and I put it in there. It's hard to see here, but I have the borders of the letters laid out on the card with a piece of purple tape. I laid them out flat on my work surface, and I put a piece of tape on it. And the reason I did that is so that I can line up my letters correctly. This time I cut out 3 extra pieces of white cardstock, Nina 110-pound cardstock, glued it all together. And if you can see here, sorry, it's not really in frame. I apologize. I think I move it up. I hope I move it up. I pulled the tape back just a little bit. I needed to make sure it was lined up correctly. So that was my solution. Pulled the tape back just a little bit. Put the E in the middle. I'll remove the border carefully. And I'm removing it now because I don't want it to get glued down by mistake with any extra glue came out of my E. And I will then do this for all of the letters. I'll peel back that purple tape just a little bit. I'll lay down the letter. I'll remove the border, and I will have perfectly lined up letters. Don't you wish you could craft so fast? Actually, no, I think crafting is relaxing, so I like to take my time. And there you go. They're all lined out really, really well. Then I went to the borders that when I cut the 3 layers of white, I had a border for each one. So I put the white border around the colored letters just to give it a little more detail, something a little bit different. And I did that for every letter. I took I call it a pokey tool, actually. I call it a dingleberry. Don't ask me why. And poke it down in there. It took some time, but I think that the results are well worth the effort. Look at the difference between the V and the O. That white just makes it look so awesome. Make sure I did the center of the O as well. And now my last letter is the L. There we go. Love it. I just love this particular card. So now I have a piece of craft foam that I've cut down, a little bit smaller than my card front, using liquid glue again. Again, it's because that way I can move it around if I don't get it straight. I can't tell you how many times I've used a tape runner or score tape and I've laid it down and it hasn't been straight, and then I have to rip it up and then I ruin the whole thing. So, and I do love this Tombow liquid adhesive. It never clogs for me, never. And I can get really tiny drops. So this is a top fold card. Oh gosh, there you go. Nice head. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't know that was in there. Lay that down with a block. I think I need to take care of that cowlick in the back of my head. What do you think? Anyhow, I decided after I put the white border around the other card that this card needed a little bit of border too. So I took the matching border when I had cut the card out, the letters out originally, and put it back in. And when you get up close, it really makes a difference. And I will zoom into this card in just a minute. And I'm just poking it all down there. It's the same level as the card. So just the love letters are raised as well as the sentiment. I took some Nuvo drops and I laid them down. You have to burp them, if you want to call it that, on a piece of paper first to get all the air out. And I just kind of lay it straight up, squeeze it and lift it. I'm sorry, I put it down, squeeze it and lift it straight up. The colors are all listed in the description below. I have links to everything for you so you don't have to dig them out and try to figure out what they are. And then what I did was I took the Nuvo crystal drops, the Nuvo crystal glaze, and I put that on top of it and to give it some really, really great shine. It made such a difference in the card. It really, and I'm just squeezing it on, letting it flood out, and then taking my applicator tip and putting it up against the edges so that I have a really good coverage of the crystal glaze. I like to squeeze it out a little bit and get a good coating and then go back and move it around with my tip. And then I thought maybe I could use my pokey tool to move it around. I realized that I was just better off keeping with the applicator. The reason I didn't want to keep with the applicator is I felt that maybe too much might be coming out, but it ended up working out great. And it wasn't too much. I just didn't want to make sure that it didn't overflow its banks, so to speak, and have too much and then spill onto the card. But it did not do that, and it worked out really, really well. Here are my finished cards. I think they came out great. You can see the border around the love, how it makes such a difference, as well as the embossed flowers on this background. The other one has the Stamp Market crisscross background, and you can see close up the water droplets as well as the great shine from the Nuvo Crystal Glaze. I took the Stamp Market all lined up stamp set and stamped on the envelopes, which is a great touch, and I hope you like them. Thanks.